Hi, this is Rob Wagner with Microsoft again, a partner technology strategist with the TS2 team. And I want to continue our discussion about Azure Site Recovery and talk about the failover event. What I've got here is the same scenario we've been talking about, and my machine is TS2 WK3. It's protected. The active location shows to be on premises. That's my TS2 site. It's running on this Hyper-V host, and I can even connect to it and look at the files on it. So this is the same E drive we worked with. From the test failover, we created this file. I'll just say we were here again. Now you've seen modifications. My replication is happening every 30 seconds. So by the time we get to the Azure console, that replica will already be there. So what we'll do is we'll move over to the Azure console. Before we start our failover, let's make sure this virtual machine is configured properly. So we want to make sure it lands in our TS2 virtual network because this is the Azure side of our site-to-site virtual network. So it's currently on premises. If we get it moved into Azure, it still has visibility from all the other workloads. I can also change the size of my virtual machine here when I do a failover. I can pick what I want to do here. I'm just going to leave well enough alone for this example, but keep in mind we can leverage the A or D series VMs. The G's haven't been added to this yet, but don't worry, they're coming. Okay, so we'll move back here. We can choose failover now and initiate the failover. Now when we initiate the failover, are we going to have an unplanned failover? Which means our on-premises site has died, okay? And odds are there will be data loss. If our on-premises site, like in this example, is still up and running, we want to do a planned failover, not unplanned. If we try to do the unplanned failover, part of its checking will see that the VM is still up and say, hey, we're not going to do an unplanned, and abort that attempt and ask you to do a planned failover. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start the planned failover. It's going to want to confirm. It recommends we do a test failover first, right? So we've already done that test failover, but keep in mind, we like the idea of test failover first to make sure everything works right. I'll go ahead and say go, and it's going to start the process. While it's working, I'll move over to the jobs real quick, show you the job kicked off, and then come back to you when it completes. So here's our planned failover. What it's going to do is start doing some prerequisite checks. Then it's going to shut down the on-premises VM. So that'll start to happen here in just a moment. What I want to point out is a planned failover does create an outage, because what we're going to do is we're going to shut down the virtual machine on premises, make sure it's shut down, replicate all of the last changes into Azure, then start the failover, then start the replica VM running in Azure. That way we ensure there's zero data loss. That's a great thing about a planned failover. Again, unplanned failover, we're probably going to have data loss. I'm going to come back to you when this is done. Okay, we're back, and the planned failover has succeeded. So as you can see, our checklist in the job list is all finished. And so if we move back over here and move up to our virtual machines, we'll now see two virtual machines here. Notice my connect button is dimmed. We would have to go open this RDP port if we wanted to RDP to it. But what I want to do is show you this other fun trick. So right now, it's on our virtual network, and I can show you that right here, test VN. And it shows up in our Azure Virtual Network now. Now look at the IP address, 221.5. What I'm going to do is go back to my on-premises DC. Remember these pings? And I'm going to ping TS2-WK3 now, 10.220.1.5. So we shut the on-premises VM down. We replicated it to Azure. We restarted it to Azure, put it in the virtual network, updated DNS. So now DNS knows how to find that VM. So now I could actually expose that RDP port, or I could remote to it from this domain controller if I wanted. Again, I'm still on premises here. This is my on-premises implementation, but I literally could go TS2-WK3, provide my credentials, and then remote directly to that VM from within my site-to-site virtual network. So again, I don't have to expose this port now to this VM. But that's a great thing about having it in this virtual network on a subnet. So now that that work is done, if I go back over here to recovery services, we still have one more task to complete. Our VM is up and running. What we need to do is now tell Azure to commit this, or I could change recovery points. So say we had a hard failover and we had to try to recover. What if I needed to go back to a prior recovery point? I have just a few recovery points here, and here's even an application consistent recovery point, because I've said every 4 hours, I think it is, give me an app consistent recovery point. will keep up to the last 24 hours of recovery points. That's part of setting up the settings in our recovery vault. But this gives me the ability to change to a prior recovery point if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that here. Once I'm done with this event and I want to run this VM in Azure now I say commit. It asks you for sure, and then it does the committing to say yes, this is where we're going to stay, and it finalizes everything. Now, one thing I want to note here, now that we're in Azure, we are not replicating back to on-premises. So Azure keeps a minimum of 3 copies of your VM, typically 6 in geo-redundant storage. We're not worried about replicating back to your on-premises, and again, you've failed over for a reason. If you want to fail back to on-premises, now that we've committed this, you can start this failover from this event. But I think what I'm going to do is do that in a separate video. So that's what I wanted to cover here. How could I fail over into Azure? How could I see things? We remember that we were able to ping it here. We even remote desktop to it. DNS updated for us and everything. Because remember, as that machine booted in Azure, it came up and said, hey, I need an IP address, told DHCP, then registered with DNS, here I am, and all of a sudden everybody was able to find that VM pretty quickly. So this was a planned failover. If you did an unplanned failover, that means you had an outage. Same type of experience. You still have the ability to pick recovery points and roll back if need be, but same basic experience. So anyway, that's where I want to leave you for now. Again, thanks for joining me, and I wish you well.